We need to talk about the Browns quarterback, Baker Mayfield. On Monday Night Football, and this is something ugly, but we got to start with it. We have to address it and talk about it because there's no way to sugarcoat it. There's no way to go around it. On Monday, Baker Mayfield was sacked 9 times by the Pittsburgh defense. And Baker did not play well, but the Browns game plan to block TJ Watt, the stud outside pass rusher, edge rusher from the Steelers, TJ Watt. The plan to block TJ Watt was terrible. It wasn't good. And, they put him one-on-one with a backup rookie right tackle, James Hudson. He got beat all night. It put a lot of pressure on Baker. Clearly got a lot of sacks for TJ Watt. And that's a bad plan. Again, there's no way around that. You have to acknowledge, hey, I think the Browns coaching staff can do better there than putting one of the best pass rushers in the entire NFL one-on-one with a rookie who is a backup, right? That's not a good plan. However, Baker chose to talk about it after the game. And the way he said it came across as him calling out his team and calling out the coaching staff in Cleveland. And there's no need for that. I really think it's a bad idea. One of my favorite movies is King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. He's got a great line. He says, "Why make enemies when you can have friends?" Why make an enemy there? Like, the last thing you want is an antagonistic relationship with your coaching staff where they feel slighted and called out. Everybody saw what happened. Everybody saw Baker Mayfield getting taken to task and having a bad game. Sure, I think he had like 10 incompletions in a row at one point, but also getting sacked a bunch. And clearly, the broadcasters were talking about it. Everybody saw it on Twitter. Everyone's talking everywhere. Hey, why are they leaving TJ Watt one-on-one with a rookie right tackle? That's a bad idea. Baker doesn't need to talk about that. The media knows it. He knows it. What it felt like to me was Baker's, maybe immaturity is the word, his desire to get the last word and feeling a need to defend himself when, like, hey, everyone's got your back here. Everyone knows that's a bad game plan. I just felt like that was uncalled for and maybe a sign of a coming separation between the Cleveland Browns and their quarterback, Baker Mayfield. And I want to be very clear here about this because, and without emotion, I'm not riled up or angry, but the Browns must move on from their quarterback, Baker Mayfield. They got to trade him or release him, get rid of him. He can't be their quarterback next year. He had a bad year. He's had a lot of bad games. In fact, the Packers game is by far the worst game of the year he had, and it was kind of emblematic of what he's had, what's gone on all year, which is that Baker Mayfield had 4 interceptions against the Green Bay Packers last week, and his team lost to a really good Packers team by 2 points. If that isn't evidence right there of that this is a really good Browns roster ready to win that's being held back by their quarterback, there is no other example. That's the one that you're like, you can't explain that. That's Baker. And all year I felt like he's holding his team back and they're not getting what they need from him. Baker's been inaccurate. He's made bad decisions. And the reality is Baker was given advantages that most quarterbacks have never gotten in their entire career. He had Odell Beckham Jr. Now, he couldn't make that work. I say had because the relationship was not well nurtured by Baker, in my opinion. And, Odell was unhappy and they had to get rid of him. And that's a big loss. I don't know. To me, that says something about Baker that he couldn't get on the same page with Odell and, keep Odell happy. Then the other people Baker's played with on offense this year, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Austin Hooper, Harrison Bryant. That's an all-star cast. That's a lot of talent that most quarterbacks would die to have. On top of that, they got a pretty good offensive line. Jedrick Wills, Joel Benantonio, J.C. Treader, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin, the right tackle. He's out right now. But, and even though they've had injuries on the offensive line, that's a good O-line when they're fully healthy. And most quarterbacks don't get that. Baker was given everything a young quarterback could dream of having. Again, a good offensive line, a good running game, good receivers, some playmakers on defense. What does Tua have in Miami? No running game, 1 receiver, a terrible offensive line. How about Zach Wilson in New York? Or Daniel Jones, the other quarterback in New York, the Giants quarterback. Daniel Jones has never played on a roster as good as what Baker has had this year in Cleveland. Baker was given everything, but the fact is he played badly. What if Cleveland had Matt Ryan or Derek Carr at quarterback instead? Do you remember the last time Matt Ryan got a lot of help. He went to a Super Bowl, had a 28-3 lead, and won the NFL MVP. Certainly that's better than what Baker's done this year. How about Derek Carr? Derek Carr has never been on a team in his NFL career as talented as what Baker has right now in Cleveland. And by the way, this year the Raiders have been a mess. Coach got fired. People got released, losing his top, one of his top receivers, losing draft picks, all kinds of stuff. Former first-round picks, excuse me. All kinds of stuff have gone on for the Raiders. And by the way, their team isn't actually that talented. And yet still, Derek Carr has his team one game from a playoff appearance. If they win on Sunday and beat LA, they're in. I don't think they're going to do that. I think the Raiders are going to miss the playoffs. But the fact that they're even in striking distance is amazing. And Baker couldn't even get his team in striking distance. Jalen Hurts, the Eagles quarterback, is in the playoffs this year with a way worse roster in Philadelphia. I say this without emotion. I say this without anger or frustration. To me, it's a fact. Baker has to go. And the number one reason to me why Baker has to go is that I believe Cleveland can win more games without him. There's a better quarterback out there that can help them win. Matt Ryan, Gardner Minshew, Derek Carr. I don't think Derek Carr's available, but let's be clear, Derek Carr would do really well in Cleveland. And the other sad thing is, if Baker doesn't stay in Cleveland, I don't know where he can go and do better. Washington? That's the problem with having a really good football team, is that if you can't win with a roster in Cleveland, the really good receivers they have, the good offensive line, the good defense, everyone was talking going into the year, myself, but if you weren't I know that I had really high expectations for Cleveland. They were a really good roster. But it wasn't just me. Everyone around the league went, hey, it's weird, but Cleveland, it's weird to say this because the Browns have been historically really bad, but everyone looked at Cleveland during the preseason and said, yo, that's a really good roster. That's a lot of really, really good players. And if Baker goes to another team, he's not going to find that. Washington, New Orleans, who else could need a new quarterback? Pittsburgh, maybe in Denver. But my point is that if you couldn't win in Cleveland, how are you going to make it worse? How are you going to make it work on a worse football team? I don't know. That's hard for me to imagine. And the one thing people say to defend Baker is that, oh, he's hurt. He's got a torn labrum in his non-throwing left shoulder. Remember, he throws right-handed. His left shoulder is injured. And I want to be clear about this because Baker's season he had this year, the really bad year, really, really hurt his career. It lost him a lot of money, in my opinion. And if Baker's injury is why he's been playing bad this year, then he should have got surgery 10 weeks ago. But to me, it doesn't make sense because a shoulder injury isn't the thing that's making bad decisions, isn't what's forcing the ball into double coverage or making bad throws or passing up open receivers to throw it. The interception against Pittsburgh on Monday, his first one, he's got a route wide open underneath and instead forces it into coverage. It gets picked off. I'm like, that's a bad decision. The shoulder had nothing to do with that. He's been inaccurate, and I can't imagine trying to throw a football with a torn labrum. But if the reason why Baker's been bad is because of the shoulder, then he shouldn't have played with the bad shoulder. That's a decision that someone made that was wrong. Because all Baker did this year, in my opinion, over and over and over again, was hurt his football team. The team in Cleveland is ready to win. They need to find a quarterback who can help them do that. They need to find a quarterback for next year who can help them win games because the Browns are far too good of a roster to not be winning football games. Cleveland and Denver, they're the two teams right now. Denver needs a coach and a quarterback. Cleveland needs a quarterback. But those are the two rosters right now in the NFL that are way too talented and far too good to not be winning in the NFL. The Browns have to move on from Baker Mayfield.